The Atlanta Hawks have just traded John Collins for Rudy Gay and a future second-round pick from the Utah Jazz. Let's talk about what this means for both teams and ultimately, who got better right after this. Listen, if you're new to the channel, this is P.kidd Talks NBA. We talk everything at this point. It's the off season. It is a lot that's going to be going on. We just at the draft. So let's just talk about this particular news here. John Collins has been one of those players that's been involved in every trade that the Atlanta Hawks have been trying to make for any particular player that they felt was going to get them better. If you thought the wind was going, if the wind blew one way and you thought that you felt like, hey, that's the best thing for the Atlanta Hawks, his name probably get brought up to trade for that. That's just the type of situation it's been. He's been the epitome of mid for them simply because, in my opinion, it just wasn't utilized right. He's definitely a rim runner. Defense has been one of the things where, it's been up and down from what most people expect. Although I think Atlanta as a whole just has a lot to cover, a lot of ground to cover with how they play, who they had around him and things of that nature. But all in all, Atlanta is trying to go out and catch a big fish, and they needed to do a salary dump. This is really what this is. This isn't about, he didn't have a market and stuff like that. It just wasn't. They needed to get his money off the books because they are going big game hunting at some point. And so this was a good way to do that. So they acquire a veteran, Rudy Gay. They get a future second round pick, and Utah, who had a lot of cap space just because of their recent dump previous seasons and how they traded away Rudy Gobert and things of that nature. They're all going in that direction. So this trade actually works out in both instances simply because Atlanta now has a cap space with this trade exception that they can now actually go out and get some pieces that they want to put around Trae Young and DeJounte Murray. Should they be able to do that and work that out? If he's not traded, we have no idea exactly where they're going to go with that as of yet. But this also gives Utah Jazz a nice defender or a nice big to put alongside the Lauri Markkanen, who has had a freakishly good season and let's just say welcome to the league moment or coming of age moment within the league, coming from the Chicago Bulls and bouncing around now, being able to be a super all-star there. I really appreciate Lauri Markkanen's game. I really am consistently reminded as to why we traded him and upset about it, things of that nature. Lauri, Utah found a gem in Lauri, and I stand on that one. And so now they not only get someone to help them defensively, again, next to Walker Kessler, but they also now have allowed Lauri kind of someone to let him do what he does. In Chicago, we really played him at the 4, sometimes 3-4, but he was really playing at the 4. Lauri is really a 3. And so now John Collins, it comes in, allows him to do what he does. John Collins is a rebounder and rim runner. Again, John Collins at one point was about 20 and 10. Now his numbers did decline steadily since then, but that's a variety of reasons. I highly doubt it has anything to do with the fact that he can't play. In fact, I don't think that at all. In fact, I think he really can play. And so now what we're going to see is the Utah Jazz really start making some noise. Last season, if you really looked at the Utah Jazz, they had some nice stretches where you were like, man, you didn't think they were going to win. Like, they weren't supposed to win as many games as they did. People just did not expect them to do. They thought that that team was going to be mid-bang, but they were a really exciting team to play, to watch play. They were really exciting. They had really good competition. They competed against the best teams in the league. And it was really good to see not only Jordan Clarkson, who we all know was a bucket coming off the bench, but seeing Lauri Markkanen really take that leap. I mean, Lauri was putting people in the basket. He really came into his own. So now you get to have somewhat of this accelerated rebuild by having John Collins, because now we know that they've with Walker Kessler coming in that trade and Walker Kessler coming into his own. I mean, some people have even looked at the numbers and said, hey, the Minnesota Timberwolves could have kept Walker Kessler and got the same production out of Rudy Gobert just because of how they play him. You now have a younger team in Utah. You have a bunch of draft picks. So giving up a future second for John Collins was nothing. They have a bunch of draft picks. Danny Ainge really knows what he's doing over there. And now you have this whole synergy thing that you're building. I'm really happy for the Utah Jazz. And really, I'm happy for those particular players. I always felt like John Collins was always the scapegoat for a lot of Atlanta's failings. Some of those things was on his game. I got to give him that. being engaged at times, being available at times, just not naturally as good of a defender as some of the other premier bigs or people at his position. But realistically, he hooped for them. And Atlanta's just a really weird team. Like, Atlanta made the ECF, I believe. They made a deep playoff run not too long ago, and no one really believed it. Everyone felt like they was like it's very circumstantial. But we actually now get to see some of those pieces and see what they do to actually make it back there. But the Utah Jazz, although the competitive competition in the West has kicked up, they could build out a nice young team with this addition. And even if the whole game plan is to potentially package these players to even trade later, I mean, they have a nice they've put together a nice squad to actually, package a new business with, should that be their game plan. I am a really big fan of how the Utah Jazz has accelerated their rebuild. They have done it in one of the most efficient ways, in which you feel as if they didn't get fleeced at all. In fact, Danny H you feel like he's still being who he is, and he's fleecing everybody else because of just how impactful and how just smart these trades have been, and what the position it sets them up for, not just now but in the future, with their contract and cap space situation. I'm a big fan of it. I'm a nerd for the business side of the NBA. So I'm always really, really keen to see what individuals like him are doing now, still trying to figure out exactly how Boston is going to do theirs and how that situation was and things of that nature. And just this creative financing or creative accounting that always seems to happen when it comes to these players and these big contracts, and how you build an organization top to bottom. And I think the Utah Jazz are doing it the right way. As far as Atlanta, we'll see what they do. I am not going to sit here and make it seem as if I have high hopes for what they do. I think they should probably be in rebuild mode just like everyone else. I think they should be in rebuild mode, much like how the Wizards are in rebuild mode. I think they've kind of hit their ceiling and their peak, and they should probably get out. But that's just my opinion. What do you think? Whether it's love, whether it's hate, give it to me. Be in the comments. We'll keep you posted. If any more breaking news drops, we'll be dropping it here. And until next time, peace.